Welcome to Difference Talks, the show that focuses on one word, differentiation, and how it is more important today than ever to discover what makes your brand unique and celebrate it with the most important people, your team.
In each episode, we meet people who've had the courage to stand up and stand out, sometimes against great odds. In a world of copies, conformity, and commodities, uniqueness speaks volumes. Difference Talks.
Welcome to Difference Talks. I'm Barry LeBeau, founder and CEO of LeBeau Marketing, Communications, and Training, and I'm the author of The Power of Differentiation. Today, our guest is Jason Lippert. He is the third generation leader of Lippert. And you know Lippert if you've owned or been in an RV, a boat, been on a construction site, if you've tailgated. I could go on and on. If you've camped, you know Lippert. They have dozens and dozens of brands in the accessories and components area. And they're a $4 billion company, 15,000 employees. He's run it for 20 years. And one thing that's really interesting we'll cover today is he believes culture is his competitive advantage in his space. So you hear all of this about Jason Lippert. I'd like to turn to you, Jason. Tell us a little bit about yourself and welcome to our show.
Barry, thanks for having me. I just a little bit about myself. I mean, as you know, I came to the business before I graduated from college as an intern. I welded second shift for a summer. I came back after graduating and welded for about 12, 14 months, just as a frontline team member, learning the business from the ground up, and that really helped me have the courage to really go out and develop the business like we did as I accelerated through the organization. But took a variety of jobs. We were purchased by a public company in '97. Started the RV business in '98. And then we grew it from there. Had a fantastic team. I mean, I was not solely responsible for that. I want to make that clear. I had a fantastic team. A lot of the people are still with me today, and we diversified in '08 into some other markets, as you mentioned earlier, and we've continued that diversification path through today, where we're maybe 42% RV, maybe 7% marine, and then the rest of it's a bunch of different industries and transportation and housing and Europe.
Can you share the challenge of bringing in one at a time 70 different companies with different cultures and being able to first identify if that is indeed a compatible culture for Lippert? And then number two, how do you embrace and welcome them in?
Yeah, well, a mutual friend of ours, Bob Chapman, really was one of the catalysts for me to change direction how I thought about culture in early years. The first 10 years we were making acquisitions and we made a lot of small ones. We were just obsessive about winning. So it was just, all hands on deck, integrate the businesses that we acquire and then just, keep with our strategy in the RV market. Today, we're a lot more thoughtful about, we've been on a culture journey for about 11 years now. We've started taking steps and we haven't looked back since about 2013. And today we just take a more thoughtful approach. We have a culture and leadership development, group in our business. It's a department. I really feel strongly that if you're going to speak seriously about culture to your team members and externally, that you better have resources dedicated to it. Otherwise, it's just, somebody else's third or fourth thing that they're focused on. We have about 29 people in culture and leadership in our business. So, they have a very specific part of the ownership of the acquisition process. They are the first in. The first thing we talk about when we're on day one of an acquisition is just we talk about our values. We talk about the expectations of leaders in the business, because if we don't get that right going forward, it makes integration really, really sloppy and difficult. So I'd say that's just a really quick sliver of how we look at acquisition integration. Obviously, we got to have synergies. We got to have we got to figure out what we're going to do with, physical locations and, do we let it stand alone or do we consolidate it and integrate it other business units. So it's just a little bit.
Jason, is there any almost secret or inside information you could share with us on how you determine the culture of that company that you're considering to acquire? Because every company is going to say to you, hey, we're great.
Yeah.
How do you determine it, and what do you look for? Are there little things where you go, okay, wait a minute here. I think I'm concerned about this, or you know what? I love that I heard this.
Yeah.
Please share.
Yeah. So you said it. You said it the best. Every company's got their own culture, because they're made up of different people and they decide how to do culture different ways. In a lot of cases, it's just it's just there. They don't have anything written or any processes or thoughts around, hey, this is what we're striving for. It just is what it is. We were like that at one point in time. But I would say that every company that we go into, we're expecting change. We're not anticipating that it's going to be, and what you see on the outside, by the way, from the due diligence process is not always what you see on the inside. So we know going into day one that there's going to be change. And the good thing we're comfortable is we've got a process, we've got values for our core values, we've got values for our leaders and what we expect our leaders to do, and we have a mission statement. So we go in and we lay that out and say, hey, look, what you had might have been really good, and in some cases, what they had, there wasn't anything that existed or any kind of North Star. But we go in and we lay the North Star out for them, and we lay the vision out for them and say, this is who we are. They're all good things. All of our core values are good things. All the values we aspire for our leaders to be, that we define our leaders in this company. You can't lead if you don't follow these 5 things. Those are things that we lay out. So we expect that there's always a little bit of angst and anxiety around it. But at the end of the day, we're like, these are all good things. Why wouldn't you want to be moving toward this? So we don't have much anxiety today. We find companies that have some really good things going on, but they're a little lost in some other areas around culture. And because we do so many, I think, as you stated in your opening comments, we feel culture is a competitive advantage. We got to compete on price and service and quality and customer experience and all the other things our competitors have to compete on. We all have to be good there. Those are like table stakes. How we get different is how much energy and passion our team members are bringing to the business every day. And that's defined by how good your culture and how consistent your culture and leadership model is.
I love that. That's going to be one of our highlights, I guarantee. Okay, I'm going to dig a little deeper. Let's say you're acquiring a company and you're sitting down with them, Jason, you and your leadership group. What are the values for Lippert? What do you tell the folks?
Yeah, so our core values are first passionate about winning. We just love to win. That was our only core value, prior to 2013. We would win at all costs. But positive attitudes, number 2. That's so important for me. I cannot work with people that bring negative attitudes to work. And sometimes that takes work. We don't coach you out of the business in 2 minutes if you don't have a positive attitude. We work with people on that kind of stuff. And again, that's what our leadership development coaches around the business are there for our manufacturing athletes and our manufacturing team members, to show them what that looks like. Caring about other people, honesty, integrity, and candor, and team play with trust are our core values. So we lead with that. We evaluate all of our team members on those things. If you're getting evaluated as a team member here, those are the 5 things.
All right, you just said something I'm calling out. Manufacturing athletes. Explain that.
And I look at business as a game. We're coming to work to win or lose every day. Hopefully we're winning. But athletes have that mindset. They have that team play, experience. That's just how you come to a sport. You play as a team. You can't have a negative attitude as an athlete, or you're not going to win. You got to have that passion to win. You got to care about others. You got to care about the people around you if you want to have the best shot at winning. So, it's the honesty, integrity, and candor. All these things are components that athletes already understand. So we tend to look at and coach our team members as we would an athlete in a sports program. And, you got to, I think that mindset is important for people. So we use that term around our business all the time. That's probably why it just held up.
I love it. Well, it's a differentiator. And the other aspect I'll share with you, because we work with some clients that are doing a lot of outdoor work and it's very demanding. And we've talked to them and say, wait a minute, your team, these are athletes. And a lot of their people at that company that I'm thinking about right now, they bring these really strong, burly guys in, and they're former football players. But you think about it, they're athletes. And what you're talking about there is not only is it the competitive sense, but in many cases, it is a physically demanding job.
Sure.
And you're out there and it gets hot out there in some of these plants and you've got to be strong and you got to endure. So I love that. That's a differentiator that you just shared with people. I think it's great. I'd like to dig into this one. Can you think of a time where you and the team at Lippert faced a pretty overwhelming challenge, a tough challenge, where you not only succeeded, but you had to rally your people around it? Because those are the times where you win the hearts and minds of your people. And that's what you love. That's what Bob Chapman, who's one of our good friends, talks about. That's what the book I wrote is about, winning the hearts and minds of people. There are times where we have to face these obstacles and we have to overcome. And other companies on our left and right are not able to do it, but we bring our people together and we're stronger for it. Please share if you could.
When we decided to change culture from, a culture of just winning is all that matters to, hey, we're going to be a culture about values first. We're going to lead differently. We're going to lead our people differently than a lot of other businesses, peers, and competitors. And that's going to be our new competitive advantage. Trying to get people to rally around that was very, very different. We had polarized some of the people because, we had some people that just had a habit of, hey, it's when it all costs you. That's just how we do things. And then pivot and say, hey, look, we're going to win the right way. There was a lot of tough conversations for the next few years because we had to, we went from a philosophy of winning at all costs to, hey, coach people up if they're not winning the right way so that we can win the right way. And if they can't get there, we need to respectfully remove them from the organization because we can't wait forever. So, that was a tough time where we just had to, change mindsets and get people focused on, hey, look, let's win the right way and win through values and good leadership.
Let's not overlook the difficulty of changing your culture when you have been winning. Yeah. You're bringing in business.
Right.
That's not easy to do.
That was confusing for people.
Right. So why did you do that? Was there some epiphany, something that happened where you said, okay, we've got to change this?
We had been winning for like 15 years. It was just everybody, telling us how great we were and how we've grown the company and, made this mark in an industry where we had, zero sales in at one point in time. And grow the business incredibly. Our stock price growth was over 1,000% in 10 years. I mean, it's just, it was a great story. But I felt empty and I went to prayer and just, it was about a year of consistent prayer for me to God about just like, hey, look, there has got to be more than just this. Hey, we win during this year and this season and it feels great and our stock price goes up and we start the next year and just do the thing all over again. And yeah, we're creating jobs and, doing some cool things on the business side and providing good livelihoods for people, but it just felt empty. And then I met Bob and, when he told me how he ran his business through a different culture lens and I read his book and, watched his famous TED Talk about truly human leadership, it like the light bulb came on for me and it was like, we are never going back together. We have got to start figuring out how to, really focus on making sure that our people don't go home every day and want to kick the dog or yell at their spouse or, just be a miserable parent for their kids because they've been, and rightly so, some people just get beat on all week because of bad leadership or bad cultures and they go home miserable. And I don't know how you can, over 20 or 30 years of a job, you get beat on every day. Eventually you're defeated. And that doesn't play out well for spouses and children and our communities.
I love that you shared that because that's what this discussion's all about. The other thing I want you to answer on it, because I think this is really interesting. You changed the culture. You were winning, stock price going crazy. What happened to your pricing? What happened to your profitability? What happened after that?
2013 is we made the decision to really flip, and we wanted it to be a really stark pivot for the company. So we went at, like 10 o'clock in the morning, so we could hit Europe, we could hit, all of our other plants and do it all at once. And we cascaded our values and said, this is who we're going to be going forward. But we were at a place where turnover was about 125%, which is kind of normal for this industry here, where we're embedded in Elkhart County. We never really thought anything. Like you said, we were winning, so we just right. managed the turnover. But what we realized is that as we started leading better, culture and values became more consistent and predictable, and people, wanted to be at a place where culture didn't change, and good values were in one day and out the next based on how the leader felt. People wanted consistency in values and leadership. And once we started providing that and getting better every year, our turnover dropped from 125% down to 30% over the next 10 years. And what we found is that quality, safety, efficiency, innovation, those things all got better the more consistency we had in the workforce. It just didn't, it wasn't obvious at the time, because we, like you said, we were winning. We didn't think like we could win bigger than what we were already winning, because we were winning big. And then the other piece is, not only did people stay longer and we got more consistency, think about quality. If somebody's leaving every month on the line, your quality is going to be worse than if somebody's there and learning and growing and learning the quality systems and getting better and providing improvements to that work seller process every week, every month. Your quality is going to be better. Your customers are going to be happier. Costs money to turn people over, but at the end of the day, people were bringing more passion and energy to work, and that is a competitive advantage for us. It's a culture thing that's our competitive advantage, but what that provides to our manufacturing business, where we have people coming into manufacturing, buildings and building stuff all day, is they're bringing more passion and energy to work, and that elevates the efficiency, it elevates the productivity, and that's where we really, I think, have a competitive advantage over peers and other.
Yeah, and I think what's so important is, by establishing that culture where people actually have significance, there's actually a value for what you're doing on the line. We are actually doing things that you should be proud of. That individual, no matter where she or he is working in the organization, they feel like, okay, I matter. What I'm doing is actually important. And you know what? I'm going to do a better job. I'm going to make sure the people next to me are doing a better job. And I'm going to invite my buddies to go join.
That's right.
Jason, when we return from break, I'm going to ask you a couple of personal questions about what makes you and your approach unique. So we'll be right back on Difference Talks with Jason Lippert.
You're listening to the Difference Talks podcast. Difference Talks is brought to you by Lippert Marketing Communications and Training. Lippert focuses on one word: differentiation.
In fact, we wrote the book on it, called The Power of Differentiation. Our goal is to inspire 1 million people with this message, helping brands win hearts, minds, and market share.
Discover more at Lippert.com.
All right, we're back. We have Jason Lippert with us. Jason, a couple of questions here. You've shared wonderful information and stories on what you've done at Lippert. What is your personal differentiation? What do you do that you think, this is what I do that's a little different? This is, I can't be all things to all people. I can't be the smartest in every area, but this is where I think I make the most impact.
Yeah, I think, part of it for me it's probably a couple things. It's being willing to innovate around culture. So, in a world where we don't have culture leaders in businesses, and I think we need that if we really want business culture to change. I mean, Bob says all the time, 88% of the people in this country feel like they work for a company that doesn't care about them. So what does that say about business culture? Not a lot of great things. It means that most business culture is not working. Otherwise, people would feel the opposite. So, I feel that being willing and able to experiment around culture and add resources there for your business is probably the biggest thing I've been able to add, because I've been willing to take some risks and say, hey, we need some coaches. We need people coaching our manufacturing leaders on the very front lines of our business because they've got 90% of our workforce. And if we're not coaching those frontline leaders, who, by the way, most of them have never had any coaching in their life, those types of things are important. Put a community impact team in place that helps our plants, coordinate community serving events so that our people are serving together in the community with their families and their teams around them at work. Be having external facing part of our business that goes and helps other businesses to really understand, the changes we made around culture and, sit with them and help them process what are their next steps. We've got a chaplaincy team. We've got all sorts of resources for our team members around culture and just making their lives better while they're at work that most companies don't do. So I think innovating there is a big piece, and then really understanding how important, getting people retooled on what good leadership looks like around the business and just being, obsessive about it. Again, we have about 1,000 leaders leading 10,000 people, and those 1,000 leaders, most of them I can tell you came from, just bad examples. I started in a bad example. I went to a weld shop and people were throwing weld wire at each other and tape measures and cursing each other out when things didn't go right. And if there's a quality problem, you got dressed out in front of 20 other people to be made an example of, and just horrible leadership lessons for decades, because that's just the way manufacturing in general, would work on the front lines. Not everywhere, but in a lot of places. And we were just one of those places, and we had to change. And so I think being obsessive about how we lead at the front lines, because that's the hardest place to lead. I mean, you go to college and you get an education, you get an MBA, you go through leadership classes, you're reading and studying. You might know a little bit more than the frontline team member. We got a lot of people that, didn't graduate from high school. It certainly didn't go to college. So where are they getting their leadership lessons and coaching from? It's got to be from us. It's got to be from within.
You have 550,000 hours of volunteer time that your employees donate during a year. And is it any charity or is it a specific charity? Because I know you love the Boys and Girls Club of Elkhart, which is a great organization. But how does that work?
Yeah, so I'll first say that to anybody listening, you can't just will it into existence. You're gonna be able to inspire some people to serve, and that's great. But we have 4 people on our staff that do nothing but do the outreach to the charities and the communities that our plants are in, our business units are in, so that there's a connection there. And then they also go to our plants and our business units and say, look, we've got these opportunities. What days do you want to pick to serve? How many people can you bring? This nursing home could take 10 people next week. Boys and Girls Club could take 20 people in 2 weeks. And again, there's this coordination. So the general manager of the plant, when they're trying to set this thing up, they don't have to do all this other work on top of the really busy schedule that they already have running a business. So having those resources are greatly important. And then we let the plants, we've got 120 or so facilities, business units that do this. They have, 3 serving events a year that we ask them to do and just bring their people to. So we let the plants kind of pick what they're passionate. In a lot of cases, we have, some champions that chair committees at those business units that help decide where they're going to go serve. And I don't really care where they serve, as long as they're out there serving and making a difference and really leading by example. Because our goal isn't to just have the 1,000,000 hours that we're shooting for here over the first 8 years that we've been doing this. It's to show other businesses that they can do the same thing. We're going to make a little bit of impact if we do what you're talking about. But if every business starts serving in the way that we're trying to lead by example, then we make, some pretty significant ripples and impact in the communities, around the country. Because this is something that any business can do.
I think that's a great message, that by sharing you're doing it, you're not bragging. I met with Ben and Jerry's Ice Cream a few years ago, and they were well known for their charitable work. And somebody in the audience got up and said, you people are so arrogant at Ben and Jerry's. How dare you? You brag about this all the time, all of this giving. And the leader at the meeting from Ben and Jerry said, we're not bragging. We're trying to inspire others to do the
Exactly.
same. And that's what this is about. So it is not a bragging point. It is something where we're saying, look, we're doing it. Everybody, just take a look. See if you could do a little bit of it, a little bit more of it.
Right.
Jason, when you compete in all these industries, because you have dozens and dozens of competitors in at least 6 or 7 different segments worldwide, what is the differentiation, the unique differentiation that Lippert provides? What do you tell the customer that you do that is distinct or different?
I tell them a couple things that are the way we do culture and leadership is always going to lead to retention, more retention than any other business, because we do culture differently, and we can point to 100 different ways we do culture different and better than their competition. Whether it's having that culture and leadership officer and a staff that where we're coaching our men and women at the front line, that's going to lead to more retention. We can prove it. And when we have better retention, like I said, the most important thing they care about is quality and service. So, when we're better and more consistent on the retention side of our business, then we're going to be better than competitors and peers and more consistent over the long term, because they're going to be able to count that our quality is going to be better and better and better and better the longer people stay with the business. And they can't argue. They can't argue that. And then service the same thing. But the other thing I tell them is that, when I have people staying around longer, they're going to come up with better ideas on how to make the products better, which is going to reduce costs, how to make the products better so that we can add more bells and whistles and features and functionality to the products that we supply. Because I've got the same people working around the products that they're building for those customers over the long term. If you've got people coming in and out of the organization building a product, it's never going to get better. It arguably is probably going to get worse. And, customer gets upset and moves away because they're like, I can't deal with consistent quality issues. And we're just not going to have that or as much of that with a group of people that are coming to the organization day in and day out, year in and year out, bringing more and more ideas and passion and energy because they're excited about the place that they work for you.
Well, and that's a beautiful counterpoint to the typical thing you'll hear where somebody says, oh, our people make the difference. And you go, okay, how? Oh, they're just great people. And it's not like anybody has a DNA advantage.
Yeah.
What you described was a pure, unique differentiator about your approach to culture and what does it deliver to the end user.
Right.
That's brilliant. Final question for you. Jason, as you look at your career and what you've accomplished, what is a best day for you? A day where you feel like this is exactly what I love. I'm so proud. I'm so energized. What happens on a best day?
My best days are typically around the weekly listening sessions I do with our facility. So I'll go to a plant. It's generally, the general manager, the plant manager, and top plant leadership, and then our frontline leaders in the business. And then generally some up-and-comers that are actually, manufacturing athletes on the front lines making our parts that have this aspiration to get into leadership. So a lot of it's just our frontline leaders. The only people presenting at those meetings are our frontline leaders. Our top level leadership has to sit back and watch and let the frontline leaders do the work. In a lot of cases, it's their first time ever presenting in front of a group like that about the business. But my best days, my best parts of those days where I do those listening sessions is when I take a little bit of time. We're doing this process called leadership action plans, where my goal and our executive team's goal around the business is to get every human being in this business with a basically a personal and professional growth plan. And I'm more concerned about the personal growth side of it, because when people are growing personally, and if we can spur them on and encourage them on, people are growing personally, they're gonna blossom at work. When they're feeling better about themselves and about I got a path now, I got goals. I've not thought about goals and dreams in a long time. And my business is encouraging me to write that stuff down and come up with an action plan. And they've got accountability partners and people helping push me and spur me on. A lot of people haven't had that in a long time in their lives. In some cases, decades. And when they get that and they feel alive and they want to share it and talk about it, that's what lights me up. So we take this time during those listening sessions to say, okay, who wants to share their their personal and professional goals on an LAP. And I'll tell you, 90% of the time, they talk about the personal goals because that's what they're most proud of. And I don't blame them. Like, I don't expect them to have the same kind of passion around work and the business that I do. And I would still probably put some of my personal goals, as passionate as I am, in front of some of the business goals that I have. So I love it when they talk about like, I'm a better husband, I'm a better wife, I keep spending more time with the kids, we're putting our phones down and having dinner together. I mean, they give me all sorts of goals that are these small, little, simple, personal goals that are making the family better. And it's the family unit, to me, that is why our culture is collapsing in this country. And if businesses can help make the family unit better, I think our country gets better.
You are using your culture as a competitive advantage, as a point of inspiration. And the results are already in. Massive growth, profitability, high retention, low turnover, just amazing amounts of charitable giving. So today I want to thank you, Jason. It's been a great pleasure to speak with you. I really hope that people listen to what you've said today and they're inspired and can pick up a few things, whether it's giving, whether it's looking at your culture and saying, wait a minute, is this a healthy culture?
Mm-hmm.
Is this something where people go home feeling good about themselves? Or like you said, are they kicking the dog?
Right.
You've made a big difference. Jason, is there anything else you'd like to add today before we sign off?
Barry, I think you covered all the major topics, and I think there'll be a lot of things for people to take away. And I would just throw it out there. If anybody's listening and they're like, man, that all sounds great, I just don't know how to take our first steps, reach out. And even if you're not leading the organization, even if you're a top level leader and you want some advice or hook me up with your owner or CEO, I'm happy to talk to people about how to get them connected to take their first steps, because that's all it took for us, is somebody that cared enough to talk about how to make a culture change so that we could be inspired, the light bulbs go off, and then we take our first step. And once you're committed to the first steps, it's generally, it's a lot of hard work, but you're generally not going to look back. And I think that's what's awesome about, the hope that these types of culture changes offer. So thanks for sharing.
Well, thank you for offering that up. What's the best way for a person to reach out to you?
Easiest way is just LinkedIn. Find me on LinkedIn. It's pretty easy, and just send me a message, and I respond back to 100%. So.
Yeah, you do, because you responded back to me, I don't know, a couple years ago. We've been together talking. Ladies and gentlemen, Jason Lippert, CEO of Lippert, amazing leader, inspiring person, using culture as the competitive advantage. Thank you, Jason, and thank you, everybody, for listening to and watching Difference Talks.
Thanks, Barry.
Thank you for listening to Difference Talks, produced by the amazing team at LaBeouf. All original music on this podcast was created by LaBeouf.
Buy our book, The Power of Differentiation, on Amazon. Have a question for the Difference Talks team? Email us at differencetalks@labeouf.com.